I knew that it had to be somebody he was spending time with.
I was 34 years old, and I wanted to have sex with her.
The feeling of betrayal, it was very painful.
I had been determined to leave, but I couldn't.
I didn't see Randy nearly as much as I could have or should have.
I was 21, and when she wasn't around, I could get lost for 15 hours a day looking at pornography.
I was really determined to find out what was going on.
She was something that I had to have. I was giving up my wife and kids for her.
People who knew us had no idea what was going on behind closed doors.
I knew at this time that I was probably going to have sex with her. I hadn't had any other women other than my wife in 8 years. The pull became to be more and more irresistible. I told her I didn't want to do this. I needed to be with my family. But I was madly infatuated. I could not stop going to see this woman. The first time that I met Cynthia, we were just teenage friends growing up. We lost contact, and about 15 years passed, and I saw one of her girlfriends, and she gave me her number.
He called me, and I said, I do remember you. And so I was like, well, okay, when do you think I can see you?
I fell in love with her the first date we went on.
He was a gentleman, and I just liked our chemistry together.
I was 34 years old, and Cynthia was 39. She knew what she wanted out of life. She said, if you want to be part of my life, we have to get married. And so I said, okay.
I just felt like I needed that commitment, and we got married.
I wanted to be this husband that provided for his family. My business was carpet and upholstery cleaning, and she was working in a office supply business. I did want some kids.
I didn't even think about having any kids because I was much older, but I ended up pregnant the next year.
I was a little concerned of, whether, it was the right thing to do, because at this time, Cynthia's 40 years old.
But we began to embrace it. When I found out I was having a girl, I was excited.
I was really concerned at that time. I was thinking, oh man, I hope nothing's gonna be wrong with the kid.
Imani weighed 3 pounds and 10 ounces. She had hemorrhaging on the brain, and her lungs hadn't completely developed.
The doctor diagnosed her with cerebral palsy. It was very devastating.
During those early years, Imani was a priority all of the time. He couldn't really take off work to go to doctor visits and things like that, so that became my responsibility because I wasn't working.
The first 3 to 4 years, it was difficult. We didn't spend a lot of time alone.
My relationship with Franklin during this time was strained. He just really didn't know how to deal with it a lot.
Things got progressive. It was another problem, another problem, another problem. Imani had a seizure like once a week. I began to feel like these things were consuming me now, because it just didn't stop.
I would feel the hurt of Franklin disassociating himself with the family. I would feel sad and wanting to be able to talk to him about what I was feeling with this responsibility with our daughter. He was never concerned about what my needs were or any of that. I began to become angry and bitter.
When you have a special needs child, it requires a lot from you physically, emotionally, and spiritually. I don't think Cynthia and Franklin were both on the same page. I think the pressures of marriage caused him to become less available and to make friends outside of his marriage.
When I first ran into Kim, I was doing some errands around town. She was attractive, pretty lady. I gave her one of my business cards, and she called. Kim was single, so I was trying to be her friend and be married. The first time we made time to go somewhere, my wife knew I was going out, but I didn't tell her where I was going. Kim just made me feel as though I had it going on. I was that guy, and that she was interested. She made it obviously clear that she was. She grabbed me and kissed me. I should have drew a line right then and said, okay, let's cut this off right here, but I didn't do that. I started going out with her more and more. You know, I was able to exhale from a lot of the things that were connected to my marriage, and I didn't have to think about having all these responsibilities and medical issues with my daughter.
He just avoided me. I knew that, there had to be somebody he was spending time with because he would stay away from me if I wanted to talk about our marriage. If he was home, I wouldn't bring it up because I would be glad that he was at least there.
We were disconnecting. I was never home. I was only going home, going to sleep, getting up, going to work.
Cynthia was mothering a child that really needed her, and I feel that he felt he didn't fit in the household anymore. So it was easier to be in the other relationship that didn't require him to be responsible.
The only reason why I was trying to develop a relationship with Kim is because the relationship with my wife just wasn't happening. I had been going out with or communicating with Kim going on 2 months. She called me and said, are you coming over? And you don't have to leave, you can stay if you want to. I went straight to the house. At this point, I wanted to have sex with her. I was led right to the bedroom. I know I shouldn't have been doing what I was doing, but I really wanted to go through with it. I remember the temperature, not in the house, but the temperature of a different warm body that I was laying beside. But that day, when it happened, it was a heavy burden. When I rode home, I didn't have no music on. When I pulled up into my driveway, the guilt weighed more than I anticipated on weighing.
When he came home, he went in the bathroom and he took a shower, which was odd for him.
I wasn't going to just get into bed without taking a shower because I have another woman sin on me, and I had sex with her.
He got in the bed and he just turned his back to me. I was like, okay, for him to get in the bed and not touch me at all, I knew there had to be another woman. I was younger, but it just is unexplainable, the pain that was kind of like deep in my gut when I realized that it's not just him and I anymore. there was another woman. I asked him, what is wrong with your home life with me and you?
I told Cynthia that nothing was wrong with her, but I was having an affair with another woman. I really wanted to work with my wife. I just tried to tell her I'm sorry. I was determined to make it right.
I believe that he did have a heartfelt guilt. I grew up with parents that were married, so I wanted that same thing. I wanted to make the marriage work. And he told me that it was over with her.
I was at home with my daughter when Kim happened to call me and tell me I'm on my way over there. And so I didn't believe her because she had never done this before. So when my daughter saw the car pull up, she didn't pay any attention to anything, but when Kim was right in front of the house, taking clothes out the car, throwing them all in my front yard, she was devastated. She asked, why is she doing this, Dad? I went outside, and Imani followed me out of the house. And she began to say vulgar things, disrespectful things. She was just angry, very, very angry. And I told her, you better get away from here. I just couldn't believe what she had done. I couldn't believe that she had not cared about who she was hurting. Kim knew that my daughter and Cynthia was important to me.
I did feel like he was trying to make us priority. He was very apologetic, and after this particular incident, he was trying to make sure that I believed that he was not trying to, rekindle that situation. She was ringing his phone, and so, he would just turn his phone off.
Kim increased her calling and communicating, telling me she missed me and when you coming over. She made it very obvious that she was interested in me. It was hard. And I wanted to go back. I started seeing Kim again. Cynthia, she didn't know about this.
I believe Franklin went back to the other relationship because it was easier. When you have a child that is ill, you have to be responsible to not only the partner and provide support and love to the partner, but also you have to provide that same support and love to the child.
If I wasn't at home, I was at Kim's house.
I didn't know what he did while he was gone. There was always some kind of excuse. I was like, you're saying that at 12 o'clock at night that you're at somebody's house giving them an estimate to clean their carpet? I mean, come on now. But I didn't want to be by myself with Imani, so I would just see that person that I wanted as opposed to the person that he was at the time.
I began to have strong feelings for Kim. It had developed into a relationship. I knew that it was a matter of time before Cynthia would find out.
One night, he hadn't come home, and I just so happened to see his van. And I was like, oh, this is where he is? I was devastated. I realized that he had started seeing her again. But I was tuned out of everything going on other than making sure that Imani had everything that she needed. When he came home, I confronted him about seeing his van. I asked him, now, do you want to tell me where you were? And so he said, you saw my van where? So then I went into explaining exactly the location where I saw it.
She said, I know what you've been doing. It was nothing to admit to, because she wasn't asking me nothing. She was telling me something. I said, I'm sorry. When I got caught, I began to feel guilty. I felt really, really bad because she definitely didn't deserve this.
The feeling of betrayal. It was painful. It was very painful. As long as he leaves and I take him back, he's going to continue that. So I just said, I have to divorce him in order for him to really understand I have had it.
She had the power to make a choice, and that choice was hers to make, and she chose to move forward independently.
I could not imagine her not being my wife. I mean, I know this sounds very selfish because I was in another relationship, but I just never thought that she would leave. I was really sorry at that point.
I was empty and I was needing to be able to talk to someone that could help me work through the different things that I was feeling from time to time.
When I first met Cynthia, I believed she was a very strong, spiritually rooted woman who had been broken.
Because so much of myself was lost between Franklin and our daughter because of her illness, I had no idea of who I was.
Cynthia learned that she was stronger than she thought she was. And she began to just say, I can live this life alone and I can take care of my daughter. It's exhausting, but I can do it.
I realized I lost a family and I lost a wife. What I had with Kim was a relationship, but what I had with my wife was a marriage. I didn't want to live without my wife because I really, really loved her. And our daughter depended on her daddy being around. I was determined to not deal with Kim anymore. It was so hard to end it, but I did. I wanted to be a good father, a good husband. I was going to begin to fight to get my wife and family back.
I accepted the end of the marriage for what it was and just began to focus on my healing and what I needed.
And Monty would call me, and Daddy, when you coming home? And I couldn't say, when I'd be home because I didn't know I would be allowed back in. I was really devastated.
After the divorce, he called her on a daily basis, but he would see her maybe once or twice a month. When we would all come around each other, I could see her tense up as if, are they gonna argue? And that made me sad. I wanted Imani to have a relationship with both parents, but without the drama. And I asked him, was he willing to participate with therapy so that we can learn how to communicate and to help our daughter, not because I want a relationship. When he agreed, I was happy.
When I first met with Cynthia and Franklin together, I felt they were not listening to each other. They were communicating over top of each other.
Dr. Green helped us to disagree about something, but still be able to continue to have a conversation.
If I had never gone to therapy, I don't know if I would have been able to talk about what I'm talking about now. It's just not nothing that I ever thought I would do.
After a year of conversation, we were able to talk without yelling. He said, you know what? I needed to grow up. I needed to mature. And he wasn't the type of person to talk about any of his faults.
I believe that I took my wife for granted. She raised our daughter by herself because I never wanted to help her with Imani. And so I put my marriage on the back burner.
He took responsibility for the reason why I divorced him. There was a heartfelt apology that he gave me, and I believed him. I decided that whatever it takes, I'm going to forgive. I am letting go of anything that was traumatizing, painful, or hurtful, because if I hold that in, it's only gonna destroy me. I just didn't want to feel that.
I believe the hurt can be worked through so that they can remember why they love each other.
I really wanted my wife back, and any way I could show that I wanted her back and that I didn't want her to be divorced, I was willing to do it.
During those years, the more we were around, the more I would let the wall down.
We began to interact and become friends.
I just remember thinking, you know, I kind of like him again. And so I asked him to move back in again.
When she asked me to come back, I was shocked because I thought that it was going to take me 10 years to show her that I'm sorry for what I done.
It's exciting because we know that we've loved each other from the beginning, but we had so much stuff in the way in between that needed to be worked out before we were trying to be a couple. And so this time it will be for the long haul.
It's easy to live in the past, but they're truly trying to live in the present.
Today, our relationship is very, very good. It's kind of like the way that I wanted it to be when we were together.
We have a healthy home. Our daughter is becoming a young lady.
She's going to be graduating high school this year, and she's doing very well.
Imani is able to see that we have made it through this. And I believe that anybody can change from a painful experience if they want to change.
I love him very much, and I see him growing and maturing and learning and coming into the person that he's always wanted to be.
I was 21, and I knew in going there that I was going to sleep with her. The sex with her was intense. It was a lot of fantasy, a lot of lust, and I wanted more. I was upset that I was unfaithful, but yet I didn't care.
I met Randy when I was 14 years old. I was a freshman in high school. He was 16 and had a car, and that was a really big deal back then.
I just thought she was so beautiful. Her long blonde hair and her blue eyes.
We had an incredibly strong connection.
I just knew she was the one for me.
We got married in 1975. Everything was magical.
I was 21 and she was 19. The chemistry was just outstanding.
I always wanted a family. from the very beginning. I got pregnant about 4 years after we were married.
I was so excited to have our first child, Justin, in my arms.
About 7 months after Justin was born, found out that I was pregnant again. After Lizzie arrived, I felt like our lives were complete. I really settled into being a mom, and Randy took on the chores of being the breadwinner during that time.
I was a driver instructor. I worked a lot of overtime. I wanted to be home, but I needed to provide for them.
We left both children with this family friend when we went on vacation. After we came back from the vacation, Lizzie started exhibiting some unusual behavior.
Lizzie had been misbehaving and bedwetting, and she was afraid, and so we wanted to take her to see a psychologist to help her.
Well, after meeting with Lizzie on several occasions, the psychologist determined what maybe was my worst fear was that she had been sexually molested.
I was beside myself. I was really shocked. I felt that I wasn't there for my daughter.
I was devastated by the news. In my childhood, I had a similar situation with a family friend who had molested me. I was very determined that there would be some sort of justice served in this situation.
At the time that Joy was building that case, I was still extremely busy with work. She spent a lot of time pursuing this, speaking for Lizzie.
I may have worked sometimes 70, 80-hour weeks. It was difficult to balance everything, but I was really goal-oriented. I didn't see Randy nearly as much as I could have or should have.
Many times marriages do suffer when children go through trauma. And in this case, Joy got very involved in the daughter's life to the neglect of the marriage.
When she wasn't around, I missed her a lot, and I was very lonely, and I found myself getting into pornography. I would do it after everybody would go to bed for a couple hours. It was satisfying my needs without her there.
At some point, I felt a physical disconnect from Randy. Randy was often displeasured by my performance in the bedroom.
Joy could not compete with the actresses that I was watching on a nightly basis. It was better viewing the pornography than it was having an intimate relationship with her.
It was uncomfortable. I didn't know what to say to make it better, so I said nothing. I think the people who knew us had no idea what was going on behind closed doors. I think most people would have told you we were a happy family.
I couldn't get enough of it, just over and over and over, because it felt so good.
Porn addiction has several stages and cycles that it goes through. But over time, what was stimulating to a person, say, a year ago, suddenly loses its attraction. And as a result, we need a new twist to it.
I met Alice for the first time at work. She had vibrant red hair and blue eyes. When I was watching pornography, I always had this thing for redheads. And once it got into my mind, she was something that I had to have. But Alice was married. I was fighting temptation. I didn't say anything to her for about 4 months. But one day I told her that I had these strong feelings for her. She told me that she had the same feelings for me. And we mutually agreed to get together at a motel. On the way to meeting Alice, I was nervous, and I was thinking about Joy too, about hurting her. I felt terrible. I did. I felt guilt and pleasure. It just seemed like we really had this connection. It was like all the fantasies that I'd thought about before. And I wanted it to continue.
We were growing apart, but I was able to compartmentalize this because it was easier and focus on the molestation case.
I continued seeing Alice because it was meeting my need physically and emotionally. I used to feel guilty about it, but then it got to a point that I just didn't care.
Over time, Randy's attitude towards me started to change. He became more critical of the way I drove or the way I parked the car, things that he would never have been critical of me before. His out-of-character behavior made me suspicious. I was really determined to find out what was going on. I started looking at our cell phone records, and when I saw the same number come up continuously when I knew he should be working, I knew that this was someone he was really interested in talking to because he didn't call me when he worked. And I knew he was having an affair.
When I got home, she picked up the phone and she called this number.
But before I could talk to her, Randy took the phone and shut it off. He got a very angry look on his face and said, "Okay, you got me." And that was it. He told me that he loved her, which devastated me even more.
When I walked out the door, I got sick to my stomach. I knew that I was walking away and I was leaving my children behind, and I didn't feel good about it. I just wanted to be with Alice.
When I knew the relationship was over, it was just overwhelming. There was a lot of sadness because this was the man that I'd had the kids with, that I had built a life around. Randy packed up and moved out, and it was a sense of relief. I was ready by that time to move on.
Joy filed for divorce 1 month after we separated. I had strong feelings for Alice, and I wanted to start a life with her. She had told me that she was going to leave her husband.
It was extremely disappointing that charges couldn't be filed. Not being able to see the case through to the end, to have some sort of resolution, some justice for Lizzie, some closure for me, it was very difficult.
After I moved out, I continued to see Alice for 1.5 years. I told her that I loved her and I wanted her to be with me, but ultimately she just couldn't do it. She told me that her husband was getting a job out of state and that it was over. I felt it was a huge mistake. I was so foolish. I really believed that I was going to have another life with her, and I was giving up my wife and kids for her. When Alice moved away, I coped by looking at pornography. I'd watch 2, 3, 4 hours at night.
In Randy's case, it was providing relief from thinking about Alice, thinking about how she hurt him, thinking about what he had lost, thinking about what his future looked like. It was a huge distraction, all consumed on a monitor screen.
On weekends, I'd go on these binges for 14, 15 hours straight, and that didn't even satisfy me.
Porn addiction can be very dangerous, and it has a tendency to escalate. Randy went on binges in porn, and that's not uncommon because remember, he's using it to medicate anxiety and depression, and it created lots of shame and guilt. But nevertheless, at the time, it provides relief.
I had no idea how to stop. I was getting out of control. I could get lost for 15 hours a day looking at pornography. I hit rock bottom, and I needed help. We had been separated for a year and a half. We didn't talk much, but I had told her all about the pornography.
I was just shocked by it. I couldn't believe that he could put that much time and effort into it. I had no idea.
I wanted to get me right and hope that it might lead to fixing my relationship with my family. And I asked her for help, and she told me about Dave Carter.
First of all, he has to have abstinence. Secondly, he needs to develop sobriety, where he has a sense of freedom from the temptation. Because you don't get rid of the urges, but you do learn to manage the urges.
As each day passed, it got easier and easier for me. It was so liberating to live in freedom from lust every day and feel good about myself.
I marveled at his dedication. He was in a better place mentally.
I expressed to her that I was so sorry and told her I loved her and I always did love her, and I wanted to see if we could go get some counseling.
I did believe he was changing and had changed. He quit blaming me. My heart started to open, and I thought that we could work on our relationship.
I was 8 months sober when we set up our appointment to have couples therapy with Dave.
Both Randy and Joy knew that there was a lot of unfinished business, issues that they've never faced.
There were some weeks that were easier than others and some that were just gut-wrenching. I could identify what I could have done better. I ignored. I didn't communicate well. I've been apathetic towards what was happening in the marriage.
I made poor choices, and I learned not to blame anybody.
You know, forgiveness is a real process, and I began forgiving him.
I'm so grateful for her love, for her grace, and for accepting my apology for the wrongs that I'd done to her.
We started reestablishing our relationship outside of therapy by dating. Kind of the same way we did when we started out.
I was very grateful when Joy was willing to give me a second chance to try and rebuild on a new marriage.
The divorce was never finalized. He moved back in a little more than 3 years after he moved out.
My love is stronger than it ever was before because it's real. I don't have the fantasies and the affairs of my mind. I love her and her only.
I admire Randy for the man he's become. It took a big man to admit to all the faults and face them down and defeat them. We have a whole new life since therapy. When there is a conflict, we don't go both hide or ignore it. We're better spouses now.
Our relationship now is better than ever before. I just pray that we can continue to love each other in our dying days.